Let's turn our attention now to talking HR. We want to look specifically at the techniques that HR practitioners are employing. And then from our HR profession, we look at some ways that we can alter the ways that we can get to know the prospective employee a whole lot better, so that we're a lot more, not just clinical, that sounds so rough, but determined in the way that we can recruit people into our organization. So joining us this morning to take a look at this is Rebekah Hinds, who is an HR professional. Rebekah, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Recruitment, that can make or break any organization.
Yes, it
So
can.
it starts there. So tell me about how important it is that HR practitioners really get it right.
I would say it's very important for any hiring manager or HR professional who does a lot of hiring, like myself. The goal is to have the most effective candidate at the end of the interview process to fill the role. And as you said just now, it can make or break the organization depending on which candidate you end up filling that role with. So it's a very important process for HR professionals.
So it's not to be taken lightly.
No, please.
It's not a statistic, in other words.
No, it isn't.
I keep saying all the time, the word is human resource.
Yes.
That word human has to be taken equally importantly. And so talk to me about some of the approaches that one can take so that we see the individual, we see their potential, and we see how there's a wonderful little marriage between them and us.
Okay, so the main approach and the main mistake that I see persons making is treating the interview process as an interrogation. It is not an interrogation, and you don't get the best results or best conversation from the candidate if the person is nervous, if the person feels like they're under the lights and in an interrogation. So the most important takeaway here today would be to not treat the interview process as an interrogation, but more as a conversation. So, and some ways to do that would be making sure that you're extending a warm welcome to the candidate, walking through what you all are going to be going through today, introducing yourself as well, and making sure, and something as simple as a warm smile goes a long way, especially when you're interviewing persons, because persons and candidates are obviously nervous because this is important. This is could be a big change for them. It may mean more money, more growth for them. So obviously persons are nervous, but the HR or hiring manager plays an important role in getting that person to have a decent conversation, have a good conversation to be able to evaluate if the person would be the right fit for the organization.
Because you could get it so wrong if you don't make them comfortable. Like
Yes.
you can actually miss out on a gem if you don't take the time to recognize that the candidate sitting across from you is a little bit uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so making them as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible, because we don't have the whole day trying to figure out who you are. So so you're saying to have that open conversation where you start with a joke, start with a little bit of laughter, and get to know the individual while you're doing so. Paying attention not just to what they say, but also what they do not say.
Yes, and one of the techniques that persons usually use to pull information out of persons is behavioral interviewing skills. These
How do you do that?
These are questions that start with, tell me about a time, or explain to me when you had a difficult customer, or how you handled a high pressure situation. And this is usually asking the candidate to use the STAR technique, which stands for situation, task, action, result. And most candidates will not get it. So that is up for the interview to prompt. I go a little further to tell persons what I'm looking for. So I want you to tell me about the time you had a difficult customer. So tell me about the situation, what happened, what was your involvement, what did you do, and what was the end result of the situation. And also the takeaway, because you might have not handled it the best way. So it tells me if you're growing. In hindsight, did you think you can handle the situation any better looking back? So we don't only look for, because it measures behavioral interviewing skills is based on the concept that past behavior will predict future behavior on how persons handle a situation. But it also, to me, measures the growth in a person. If they're able to look back and say, you know what, I could have done this a little better.
So even though they may have had a successful outcome, based upon how they're thinking or what have thought that process through, can give you some indication as to whether they're a good fit.
Yes, please.
There's this thing called psychometric analysis that people tend to use nowadays in determining whether or not the person is the right fit. Is that one of the most suitable, you think, approaches to take when one is recruiting?
Depends on the level of the role. I would say for entry-level roles, it is not necessary for entry-level roles to go so deep. But for a leadership role or mid-management or leadership role, you would want to get a little bit more analysis on the person's mindset, on how the person will handle managing the team, because this person is going to be the head of your organization. You want to go a little deeper. And yes, it has been proven to work properly, but it depends on if the person who is distributing the information knows what they're looking for, if they are skilled in delivering psychometric analysis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The organizational needs are also at the center of everything we do. And you talked about having that conversation with the candidate so that they understand what the organization needs, and you understand who they are at the same time. It is not an exam in the traditional way, as let's see how many questions we get right. But at the same time, even if you got the question wrong, again, we're looking at attitudes and adaptability, in my mind. And sometimes the candidate comes with wonderful qualifications, but they just don't fit.
Yes.
So how do we able to look past? You've been to Queen's College, Harrison College, you have a degree, and all the rest of it, to determine that the little one who went to Coleridge and Parry-Me is the better fit than that other candidate?
Preparation. Preparation is key to make sure that you get the right candidate at the end of the interview process. So there are a lot of persons who look good on paper, but then when they show up, they're not able to, we have a lot of agencies that do CVs for persons. We have a lot of information on the internet now where you can go and rehearse how to speak well. So you can use big words like I am a team player, I am resilient, I am goal-oriented, but it is up for the interviewer now to dig a little deeper. Do you know what those words mean, or what do those words mean to you? I usually ask persons, you're a team player, so tell me, what does a team player mean to you? What does that look like to you? Because your version of a team player and my version of a team player may not match, and it may not be what is right and suited for the role. Another key thing is before the ad is even posted, knowing what are the key responsibilities and the core responsibilities for the ad. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, you can spend a lot of time shortlisting with a lot of candidates that are not suitable for the role. So making sure before the ad goes out, you know what is needed in the role, what the organization needs to succeed, and what the candidate looks like, the perfect quotation mark candidates look like for the role. What would you want that person to have? What is teachable, and what is something that they need to come in already having a base of?
The balance of hard skills, soft skills.
Yes, please.
Is what's going to be important. And so, one, it starts at the advertising.
Yes.
How do you begin to send a message that I'm looking for you? And then to be able to describe very clearly in that ad the you that you're looking for, coming with these particular requisite opportunities that we want to give to you. Spell out what it is that you want them for. Do you think that's absolutely critical as well?
Yes, not every role you can put every single thing that the job entails. So you have to focus on the key things. What are the key things, the day-to-day things that this role would need? And you don't want to deter someone from applying by having too many a job ad that is too confusing or not sure what you're doing. So the key things, the core things that the person is going to be doing, you want to make sure that the ad goes out with that information. And what are the key requirements? What do you require as a company? What do you think? Is this an entry-level job? Do you need persons who don't have much experience? Are you looking for growth potential? Or is it a leadership role? Are you looking for persons who can lead a team, who have good decision-making, critical thinking? You need to know what you are looking for before you put out the ad.
That's a hard skill to do, though. I mean, to try to dream in such a way, and I use the word dream loosely, to be able to identify exactly what it is that you're looking for, and to hear the words behind the words or beneath those words. And so it's a conversation, as you've said, that starts between the potential candidate and the HR practitioner. But how do I get beyond my biases so that I don't disadvantage the candidate?
That's a good question. So I think the first step would be identifying that you have a slight bias. You might be favorable to some person, and it's very simple. Your favorite color might be pink, or somebody walks in the interview, they have on your favorite color, they're a very bubbly person, and you could get sidetracked a little bit sometimes because it's a cool and friendly person, but at the end of the day, you're not looking for a cool and friendly person to fill the role. You're looking for an effective person to fill the role. One of the key things to eliminate bias as much as you can is structuring prerequisite questions before the person gets in front of you, so that you go back to evaluating the job role, you go evaluate the person's CV, and you do a mixture combination of questions between what the person's experience is and what you're looking for to fill the role.
So preparation. And sometimes, you know, you're in preparing, you realize this candidate doesn't look as though I'm going to spend a lot of time with. Perhaps I need to bargain my time in such a way that I can have more time with this other candidate. But in that itself, I think there's an inherent bias, because I've not taken the time yet to know, because I've looked at paper and I've made an assumption.
And that is why a conversation is very important. Having a conversation with the candidate, because the CV doesn't cover everything as well. Persons might give you more information when they come in front of you of situations, especially in those behavioral interview questions. You'll find persons giving you a little more in depth of who they are and what they represent and what they stand for. So being able to not judge a person based off of CV, but being open to the candidate that steps in front of you and listening, practicing a lot of active listening. So you have to be able to be listening to pick up on something that a candidate may be trying to hide or trying to cover or trying to smartly allude to something that really you need to dig a little deeper. Yeah. So you have to pay attention, and again, not treat it like an interrogation where you're rattling off question after question after question, and then you usually see these type of interviews where the person is just saying okay after each question and not going in a little further. So tell me about the situation. Tell me how that made you feel in the moment. What have you learned since then? You have to dig a little deeper, especially if you want a better candidate at the end of the interview process.
Your instincts guide you too.
Yes.
Sometimes a listener, you could tell whether this person is fluffing it,
yes,
or they're not giving you everything, and so you ask the question to bring out the other thing.
Yes.
And so you're right about actively listening, not just with your ears but with your eyes, yes, and your heart, because you are going to sense something isn't quite right here, and follow that instinct just a little bit, because it can lead you to a nugget of gold. And so that's important to be able to understand. So preparation for an interview. And I think a lot of times HR practitioners, I shouldn't say like that because I don't want to be critical of, but there are times when HR practitioners have not adequately prepared. And so they are overtaken by the interviewee, yes, who leads them down the road they want to lead them, yes, and take them where they're, and sometimes that is a danger for the organization. So talk to me a little bit about the importance of HR practitioners really doing everything we've talked about so far for the morning: preparation, listening, paying attention, create that safe environment, and how that importance impacts on the organization.
Yeah, I dare say that an interview process that starts with clarity ends with clarity, and some key things in between that make sure you have a good end goal of having the most effective candidate is preparing, making sure, one, you send out the correct job ad and correct requirements for the position. Make sure you're shortlisting in adjacent to the role, and not in adjacent to your bias, but what you would like, but what you need for the organization. Having conversations with persons when they get in front of you, and not treating the interview process as an interrogation. Having conversations with persons, digging a little deeper for leadership roles and not necessarily for entry level. Knowing when to adjust the interview questions for entry level and for leadership. And then finally, giving the follow-up. Something that is very key. Letting the interview candidate know what is next. Can we look forward to if you're now starting your interview process, if there would be a few more weeks before the person hears you. And also being honest, because not every HR is a department. Some of the teams are very small, and sometimes it's just one person. So things can slip through the cracks. Let persons know, well, you can expect to hear back from me in 2 weeks. However, if you don't hear from me, feel free to reach out, because that's the reality of it. It's human resource and human resource behind the HR, and not all of us are a department. So some things we don't always get right the first time. We too as well learn as we go through the process. But ending the process, making sure the candidate knows what is the next step, if they can when they can look forward to a call, and what would be the result, right?
Wonderful advice, Rebekah Hinds. Fantastic advice, as a matter of fact. And so I'm hoping this morning that as HR practitioners paid attention, that you see ways in which you find your own deficits, and now you know that there are some other ways that you can fill those deficits. But I always remind you that membership brings benefits. HRMAB.org.bb is the website to which you can go to register, to sign up, to be a part of. If you haven't yet already enlisted to be a part of the organization, and let the experts like Rebekah and the others who are there, who have vast years of knowledge and experience, help you. Don't just sit on your own and rub your hands and thought that your book had it all. Sometimes the lived experience of other practitioners can guide you and make you a better HR practitioner as you go. Remember the word human, then the word resource. They are not products. They're not little things that you're making. They're people with beating hearts and needs. And so to be able to meet those needs is what's absolutely essential in the process of recruitment. Thank you so much, Rebekah.
Thank you so much, Pearson.
You're very welcome. We've been talking HR with HRMAB.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.